Facebook Live event here on May 8th. Today we're going to talk about hotel relationships and why they matter, especially now. We're going to have some great guests on here. We're going to talk to Troy Wood, who's the Director of Sales and Marketing over at the Park Hyatt Aviara Resort in Carlsbad, California, just north of San Diego. And we've also talked about this coronavirus contingency plan the last couple of weeks, and we're actually going to bring in John Whitney, who actually has put that whole plan together and is basically the owner of Emergency Concierge. So very excited to have some special guests on today. First off, obviously, I want to thank all the hospital workers. I want to thank the people on the front lines. Again, it's hard to see the death tolls that keep happening every day, but there's a lot of people out there working hard for us, a lot of people putting their lives on the line, and we appreciate you. We thank you, everybody that is out there working and keeping us safe. We truly, truly appreciate you, so thank you so much. Also, happy Mother's Day weekend. Mother's Day is a Sunday, so happy pre-Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. And basically, as we get going here, if you have questions, feel free to type the questions into the comment section here of our Facebook Live event, and I'll be answering these questions as we continue on with the event. So thank you again for being here, and let's get started. The state of the industry this week. You know what? It's every week when I put this together, there are so many, I feel, large, important things to share with everybody. So I'm really glad, again, that we're on this call and able to share some more information for everybody. But when we talk about hotel relationships, one of the things we have to realize is that we're all in this together. Hotel people are having a hard time and being laid off. Planners are being laid off. Directors of sales and marketing are basically handling 5 or 6 or 10 different positions within their properties. Everybody is having a hard time. So what you do now and how you conduct yourself will matter, whether you're a hotelier or you're a planner. We know that there's a lot of angst out there. There's a lot of anxiety. We have a lot of people that are having a hard time. And one of the things my good friend Harold Batiste came up with is make emotional deposits with each other. Take care of each other. Before you jump on that call and start screaming about a contract or an addendum or a force majeure or a cancellation, check in with that person. How are you doing? What's going on in your life? How can I help? Because everybody has their own struggles with everything that we're going through right now. And I think the important thing, when I talk about hotel relationships, it's important on both ends, not only for the hotel sales managers, but also the meeting planners. We have to realize that we need to take care of each other, be nice to each other, take deep breaths, and know that on both sides, a lot of us are going through some tough times. So that's why these relationships matter so much. Show empathy, be fair. Those things are very, very important when you're looking at, if you've got cancellations, if you've got addendums you're working on, whatever it may be, make sure to take care of each other because those relationships do matter. Better relationships, the second point here is better relationships will equal better deals and more business. And this kind of goes back to our hotel friends, is if you're an easy hotel to work with, if you are making this process easier during one of the worst hotel recessions we've ever seen, people will bring you more business. These are times when planners, even people like myself, this is when we know who took care of us. This is when we know, hey, who was there for us and who was fair. Again, it's not about, comping cancellation fees and just waiving everything, but it's about being fair. So please remember, as you're going through these negotiations with each other, be fair, be honest, and take care of each other, because those relationships that you will build with these planners will bring you more business in the future. And I want to just send a shout out to a couple of hotels that have helped me, because again, the hotel relationships do matter. And here are a couple properties that I want to mention that took care of me and my clients within the last 3 months. The Hyatt Regency Atlanta, the Sheraton and Westin in Vancouver, the Capitol Hilton in Washington, D.C., the Arizona Biltmore, the Radisson Blu Mall of America in Bloomington, Minnesota, the Hyatt Regency Cincinnati, the Hyatt Regency Minneapolis. Those are hotels that I'm listing personally that have taken care of me, and I will send more business to as soon as possible because they were fair, they were honest, and they worked with myself and my clients. So thank you. Those relationships are important. I will be sending you more business, and I will hope that people that watch this will also say thank you and bring you more business. The other part is don't negotiate like it's 2019. Deals are out there. Don't accept the norm right now. Even with the Radisson Blu Mall of America, I believe I touched on this last week. We got a program signed for this August with no attrition and cancellation up until 4 days prior. There are deals to be had. Make sure that you are looking around the country or around those different cities to see what everybody is doing. Because again, I'm finding personally that a lot of hotels are offering deals and they're taking care of us, but there's also some that aren't. So make sure that you're reaching out. That's obviously a service that I provide and all of our HPN Global associates provide, is to check that availability around that city or around that area where you may have a program. So let us help you and see what's out there because there are a lot of amazing deals to be had right now. The other thing I want to say, Hotel Salespeople. This is a book that I used to basically have all of my sales managers read and basically study when I was a director of sales. Jeffrey Gitomer, The Little Red Book of Selling. I think as the tough thing is a lot of you are, you haven't gone through the bad times yet. You haven't been in a hotel recession like we're going through right now. And honestly, we're going through one of the worst of all time. So I think a great thing that was brought up last week from our director of sales marketing friend at the JW Marriott in Anaheim that joined us was that you need to basically, RFPs are going to become more emotional, right? It's not going to be dates, rates, and space anymore. You need to focus on what's important for your group. You need to start calling your clients, calling your third-party partners and saying, hey, we want this piece of business. What do we need to do? Don't just spray out dates and concessions. Make an emotional connection on the RFP, and it'll come a long ways for you, I promise. And make sure to read that Jeffrey Gitomer book. Trust me, it'll change your mind, or basically, it'll blow your mind, I should say, where it has so many great and honest things that hotel salespeople need to realize in this kind of environment where you're truly going to be fighting for business moving forward. So another thing, obviously my Facebook group page, A Meeting Planner's Best Friend, make sure to like that page. I'm putting posts on there all the time regarding any new deals that are coming up. I put all the cleaning and sanitation guidelines for Hilton, Hyatt, Marriott that came out last week. We just put some more information on there on the IHG, which is now offering no attrition for 2020 meetings. We talked last week about the Indianapolis CVB putting together a promotion for no attrition. Again, you're going to see these keep popping up. So follow me on that Meeting Planner's Best Friend fan page. I'll be posting that as I get that information that comes in. The other thing that really was some great information this week, if you didn't get a chance to see it, is Connect Meetings has a program this August. A lot of our HPN Global associates are attending it, but they put together a safe and clean plan. It's a 2-page document that I thought was absolutely fantastic. It was detailed, it was laid out, and honestly, and I'm not going to the program, but if I were, it would make me feel more comfortable about going to the program. And I thought it really brought up some great, I think, guidelines that a lot of us are going to be moving forward with the next 6 months. They talked about temperature checks before even entering the event. They talked about a cloth mask being required. They talked about disinfectant foggers in the exhibit hall area. They talked about plexiglass shields on the appointment tables. They talked about indoor and outdoor spaces. I think that's another thing that's going to be really important looking forward is outdoor space. Maybe getting out of that city space that you've been in and have some locations and some hotels that have outdoor lunch space, outdoor reception space. Because again, trying to get out of that confined area I think is going to be really important for a lot of attendees moving forward. They talked about not having a main general session. They talked about obviously larger aisles, sessions having 6 feet between chairs, F&B being pre-packaged, no buffets, things like that. So if you need a copy of that, let me know. It's fantastic information, really well put together 2-page document that I would highly recommend. And then obviously we've talked about multiple times, even with Joel Dasher on our meeting services team, about virtual meetings. We have a great 1-page document that will kind of lay that out and kind of give you some direction on what to do moving forward if you want to get virtual involved. So if you need that information, again, please let me know. But again, without further ado, I want to bring in Troy Wood. Troy is the Director of Sales and Marketing at the Park Hyatt Aviara. Hello, Troy. You're looking dapper there in the beautiful San Diego sunshine. So thank you so much for being here. We truly appreciate it. And obviously, having somebody, the great thing with Troy, and the reason I wanted to bring him on board, not only because I have a piece of business booked with you in January, which is going to be fantastic, but Troy also has a huge background in convention services as a DOCS basically. So not only the marketing and sales side, but also the convention services side. So first off, Troy, welcome. And, why don't you just tell all of our people online here a little bit about Troy Wood?
My Hyatt career is basically 12 properties, 3 continents, 25 years, really. I was a director of catering convention services at 3 of those properties, opened 2 of them, including one right in the middle of something similar to this. I opened a property in Jersey City right across the Hudson from the World Trade Center right after 9/11, which led into
Wow.
Gulf War II and
Right.
having to deal with a lot of those same similar uncertainties, a whole lot different than what the last recession was. And
Right.
this mirrors more of that, I think, than what the recession was.
Right. Well, perfect. Well, I tell you what is life like for you now? What are your day-to-day operations for your position as DOSM? What are some things that you are doing and working on right now moving forward?
That's a great question. What we're doing right now is we are in the middle of a huge renovation right now. So we are like that wasn't enough that we were dealing with, but it's what's happened now with it as we've reduced our workforce during this process here. We're spending a heck of a lot of time right now dealing with a lot of customers about what the future looks like.
Right.
What does the future look like in there? How does those meetings happen now? How do I negotiate through a force majeure clause for 3 weeks from now versus 3 months from now versus a year to 2 to 3 years now. So
Right.
that's taking up most of our time right now, but really charting a course and a map through this current situation. But you're not just charting a map through this and out the other side, you're charging a whole brand new roadmap
Right.
into the future.
Right.
It's just not we're going to come out of this and things are normal again. Never
Right.
going to be like that.
Yeah, it's almost like opening up a brand new hotel is what I've told a lot of planners is that you have not only a lot of properties that are closed, but when they reopen, they have to go over all these new standing operating procedures for the sanitation guidelines, whatever it may be, in so many different areas. So it's really like opening up a brand new hotel. But what as you obviously get ready to get your renovations done and things like that, and you talked about some of the processes that you're working on. What are some of the things you're laying out right now as you're trying to get ready to bring some sales staff back, and obviously when's your first group? Really, I think that's the other great question. When's your first group coming back to the property?
Our first group is now late June when we
Late
have
June.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, what we're doing a lot with right now is really creating those meeting room sets. And what do those meeting room sets look like? Because the days of the 500 people shoulder to shoulder are gone for a long, long time. The
Yep.
ballrooms packed to capacity, packed max with theater style are gone now for a long time. Those receptions, those dinners that used to have 10, sometimes 12 people per 6-foot round, depending on how off the count was,
Right.
are now going to start off probably around about 4, maybe 5 per 6-foot round. So it's really remapping your space and looking at all that. But what we're also pushing a lot with here, and what I think meeting planners are going to have to really think of, is what does the meeting of the future look like?
Mm-hmm.
And I say to that in that what does you got to start thinking about non-traditional space here. Now I'm different. I'm in a resort, and my counterparts in resorts are in the same sort of situations, which means we're probably positioned better to come out of this in a lot of other places. Take my resort, for instance, where this chic SoCal resort was set on 250 acres of land. I've got massive amounts of outdoor space. So what does that look like for everyone that uses resorts? Typically, you use your outside spaces for your dinners and everything like that. But now, I think people have really got to start thinking about those outside spaces for alternative things like breakouts.
Right.
You're not going to be able to are you going to want your breakouts in a traditional breakout room? I'm
Yeah.
not so sure. I'm hearing a lot of people want to do breakouts outside in verandas, patios,
Right.
golf course corners, things like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I believe the same thing. And I think it's a great point that you bring up. And I brought this up a little bit earlier is that I think you're going to see properties like yourselves that are resorts or possibly on the beach or have, like you said, outdoor space are almost going to be more sought after because of the flexibility of bringing stuff outside and making people feel more comfortable outside, whether it's for general sessions, lunches, breaks, whatever it may be, where you have your city hotels that are just confined to their indoor space, their foyer space, that may be a little bit more difficult. Um, so with what you're doing as far as changing the sets and things like that, or thinking about that, are you putting together new guidelines or things that you are able to share with planners in the future here of what crescent rounds would look like in your ballroom, or what 6 foot separation would look like classroom style in your ballroom space? Are you working on any of that right now?
Yeah, absolutely. We've already, just this week, I've already done photo and video shoots of exactly what that looks like. We'll have all of our spacing guidelines all ready to go live on Monday. That's
Okay.
in tandem with Hyatt's global care and cleanliness purpose combined in together. So planners will have a one-stop document on there of what that looks like and how that looks like.
Okay. And are you able to share sanitation guidelines or anything like that moving forward, or is your hotel working on that when you have groups coming in July, October type of thing? Are you able to share a sanitation guideline checklist or anything that your hotel's put together or that your hotel's working on right now?
Absolutely. I already got that in place. That'll be ready to
Okay.
go live Monday, and we'll be sharing that with all of our meeting planners
Oh,
because
yes.
safety is going to be the number one factor. And you've got
Right.
a couple of different things when it comes to that safety, and I think we're trying to account for them all, and I think we're doing a pretty good job as a property at the Park Hyatt Aviara.
Mm-hmm.
Is that you're going to have industry guidelines, you're going to have hotel company guidelines, but then
Right.
you're also going to have different state guidelines. And then further within that, you're going to have different companies are going to have their own internal safety protocols of what they have to do. So
Right.
for my hotelier partners out there and friends, it's a whole brand new normal coming out of this. That
Yeah.
it's not a case of one size fits all, and you're going to have to be extremely flexible in how that works and how that looks. And the same goes for our meeting planner friends.
Right.
You've got to you got those of us that have all been through this a couple of times know that a change is coming out of it, and you've got to be nimble and you've got to be quick, and
Mm-hmm.
you have to really figure out. You've got to really look at what's your attendance actually really going to be at this thing.
Mm-hmm.
How much is it? How much can you do it? It's pretty interesting.
Okay. Hey, I got a great question here from Daniela on here. It says the new guidelines impact capacity. Obviously, how is the Hyatt handling the change in terms if annual budgets and goals? I'm
Oh,
sure you're dealing with that all the time now.
I think annual budgets, like everyone's annual budgets, are,
Right. Right.
I think that's sort of, I don't want to say secondary at this point. The
Right.
goal right now is to get back up and going and serve our customers and our guests. And look, it's going to be multi-phased. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
as we look through 2020 events and groups, yes, there's a lot of work going on there, and trying to renegotiate, re-look at that. We look at everything's different on it.
Right.
As you get into 2021, you're still going to have a lot of that going. The further out you get,
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot more set and a lot more sold. It's going to be
Right.
an immediate shock that's going to happen, and that
Right.
shock has been happening. So with budgets, to answer your question, a long way round, yes, budgets, revenues are important. Budgets, I mean, when everything's just been slashed the way it is and the way it's been turned upside down,
Right.
it's all about, it's all about the revenues in, and it's all about getting people back to work. That's what a
Right.
lot of people really, I hope, understand, that it's where our industry, our hotels are being
Yeah.
completely changed forever. And the teams that we used to have, the sales teams, the operations teams, everything is now going to be completely different coming back. But we've
Yeah.
got to get them back, and we need revenue for that. So every decision that a meeting planner does make is quite literally affecting the future of umpteen people.
Right. So again, as the director of sales and marketing at a large high-end resort there, how do you see the sales process changing on your end? What things are you going to have to implement with your sales team moving forward? Or what kind of things are you thinking about right now as you try and get your sales managers back on site?
I actually had that discussion with my boss this morning as we were talking about, how it looks coming out of it. And while experience is going to be very, very important throughout something like this from a group sales side, particularly, um, it's also going to cause a lot of people are not going to be able to look at things the way they do. So, what we're preparing for and what we're talking about is how to create that environment and that situation where a sales manager looks at something completely different than they ever have before. You
Right.
can't go by those space guidelines. You can't go by those capacity charts. So think differently. How do you think differently? Every customer is going to be different for a while here. How
Mm-hmm.
do you manage that process? So that's kind of what I think we're preparing for the most.
Yeah, when we were talking to our friend, the director of sales and marketing over at the JW Marriott Anaheim, just north of you, she was talking about kind of getting back to basics and really making RFPs more emotional, right? So people care about what's going on. Talk to the planner, what's important, what do they need, instead of just dates, rates, and space and blasting it out. Here's our response. If it's a piece of business that you want, picking up the phone, talking to them personally. How are things going? What do you need? Because everybody's process is going to be so much different. Their emotional needs are going to be so much different. So I think really getting back to that old school process of, and that's why we're talking about relationships matter with hotels, is that these RFPs are going to be so much more, I think, emotional now for planners. So, are you still there? All right. Well, hey, Troy, I wanted to thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of our live event. I know you got to get off to the golf course, so thank you so much. We appreciate you. Thank you. And, you know, keep on doing what you're doing. We appreciate everything you do. So thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Next, I want to bring in John Whitney. John's with Emergency Concierge International. And John has been a dear friend of mine for a long time. And we've talked about the coronavirus contingency plan for the last couple of weeks. And I've sent it out to a couple of you that have been on the Facebook Live calls in the past. So I wanted to bring John in and have him kind of talk a little bit about the event or about the packet that they've put together, what their services are, how they can help. So, hey, Brian, do we have John available on the line?
Hey, Mark, can you hear me?
Just going to wait to see if we can get John on here.
Hey guys, looks like we've got John and he can hear us.
Okay.
Mark, can you hear him? Let's.
I can hear
can you
you.
hear me?
I can't hear John, but it's all right.
All right, John, it's on. It's all. You're all good, brother.
Okay. Hey, John.
All right, so you got me now?
I can't see you, but I know that you're a beautiful man. So thanks for being here. We appreciate everything that you do with ECI. But tell us a little bit about basically this coronavirus contingency plan, what it is, and why you put it together.
All right. Can you guys hear me okay? All right, you got me. Okay, good. First of all, I want to comment on you make me follow the guy with the cool accent who's got the palm trees, obviously living the SoCal dream there. So that's a tough act to follow. So I appreciate the opportunity. You set me up, Mark. I know he can't hear me right now, but he'll get this later. So my name's John. I'm a CEO of Emergency Concierge International. We are an all hazards emergency planning organization that deals specifically with meetings and events. We also provide on-site crisis management services for meetings and events as well. So we worked on the very front end of this whole process in developing a coronavirus COVID-19 medical contingency plan. The goal of that plan was to provide a
Trying to
resource.
reconnect me, Brian. I'm sorry.
We were in the phase where we were trying to get meetings were still going on, and we wanted to provide a resource to help folks kind of walk through a checklist, walk through a process. What are the things that need to be communicated? What are the things that need to be identified, as well as what information needs to occur if an attendee becomes sick, or there's something that goes along that needs to be addressed by the planning team. So really what we designed was a step-by-step checklist process that to help planners in executing events at the time when meetings were still occurring.
All right, I got nothing over here.
Okay. I'm just going to keep talking then.
I hate it when this happens.
The plan where we're going moving forward is to modify that of kind of looking at kind of what we've been working on is when we come out of this on the other end, what does that look like, and what can planners plan for? The gentleman before talked a lot about the different expectations that you're going to have, where you're discussing the public health, the different departments and agencies or organizations, meeting organizations, what specific safety guidelines that they have, what the hotel industry is, what the current CDC guidance is at the time. It's very crucial that you have someone in your corner that can help you manage all those different components. That's something we do when we work with clients. Is we go in, we focus specifically on the safety, security, medical aspect of the events, and in this case, dealing specifically with the kind of the COVID-19 information, and help to provide a resource for those folks and take that load off the planners. So with that, that's a lot of what we've been working on, is establishing what does the guidance look like moving forward, forecasting the future needs. So kind of speculating what does this look like at the other end, and then also looking at the practices of how to handle it. What are going to be the expectations of attendees, what are going to be the expectations of the property, and then looking at ways to balance and manage those to where you have a good, solid, safe environment that's reasonable and that can be managed accordingly while still providing for a fun and welcome environment. So, Mark, are you there, or should I just keep rambling on?
Hey, John.
Yeah.
I think you should continue to talk about this. Mark, I think we've got Mark here coming back.
Okay.
Here he comes.
All right. So
Here
I
come.
can just all right. Are you back? You got me now?
Yeah, baby.
Dude, I killed it. I killed it while you were gone.
I'm sure you did. I had no doubt you would kill it. So I'm sure you said a lot of really smart stuff because obviously you're a smart man. I think first off, the contingency plan has been a huge hit for the planners. So first off, from myself and from the planners that watch us, we want to thank you for putting that together. It really is
absolutely
an important document. Now, are you looking now as the world changes? Basically, are you looking to revise that document? Are there new things coming out? Where are you at on new changes for that entire process, basically?
Yeah. So that's something we mentioned, is that's really where our next steps are looking at. So what we're trying to forecast is like, what are the future needs going to look like as best that we can judge, as well as kind of taking that contingency plan and like I mentioned, and that was developed when everybody was on the fence about meetings. Meetings were still happening, but attendees were getting real hesitant about doing it. Right. As we come out the other end, we're kind of on the backside of this process, like, what does it look like when we restart meetings? Mm-hmm. So what is the new checklist for the planner? What's the new checklist for the organization that will help them establish what are the new guidelines? How do you communicate that information in a very kind of clean and concise process? Right. So that's something we're looking to update. Okay. We've been doing a lot of work on kind of forecasting what the quote unquote, risk management needs that we see coming out of it. So we've done quite a bit of work on that, and happy to share those if that's something you're interested in.
Okay, perfect. So what is the most important thing that you see with this type of situation now, with people going into hotels starting to open up again, people planning their first meetings, going into properties? What's the most important thing they need to look for or watch out for, would you say?
Yeah. So we kind of hit, there's probably like 3 or 4 bullet points that we're really kind of focused on helping people work through. Number one is don't get myopic focused on the COVID problem.
Okay.
That has to be addressed. That's kind of the moth candle syndrome. We're very myopic, focused on that one item right now.
Okay.
Historically, comprehensive emergency planning and emergency management has been grossly neglected in the meetings and events industry, unfortunately. We've had a good run, not a lot, things happen, but if it's, we have a short attention span.
Right.
What we see a lot of people are really paying attention, and they're looking at, well, what is the COVID plan? What's the COVID plan? You have to have a plan for COVID, and I'm going to discuss that in a second. But you also have to have a plan for everything else. COVID aside, people still have to evacuate properties. People still get hurt. People still have heart attacks, medical issues, inclement weather, things like that need to be addressed. So our number one guidance to people is don't get locked just into isolated COVID-specific planning. Look at the comprehensive approach to what you have.
Right.
Additionally, looking at your medical contingency plans and really analyzing what's going to be your plan to kind of mitigate, prepare, and that really ties into a lot of what you're talking about with the different hotels, the different cleaning and disinfecting practices, things like that.
Right.
So it's nice, I was talking with someone else, and like, well, now we're checking hospital capacity where we're going. Well, that's great to check hospital capacity, but if you don't have a plan of how to actually implement that and how to get your attendee to the hospital, et cetera, those types of things don't necessarily they're not as critical as you might think at that time.
Right.
And one of the things we've been discussing lately is there's going to be a contingent of attendees that are going to end up, the people who are ultra scared of the risk are going to most likely still stay home.
Right.
There's going to be those that come out that are like, hey, bring it, let's move forward, business as usual. Right. There's going to be a contingent, and it's understandable, as you talked about. I mean, people die from this. It's something that's scary, right. and depending on your level of comfort with travel to begin with, et cetera, you can run into a lot of concern with that. Right. Running into the question and concern of when you're at an event and one of your attendees starts presenting with COVID-like symptoms, which are very similar to the flu. We still have flu season that will come up eventually, like it does every year. Right. When attendee presents like that, how are you going to handle that? And how are you going to handle the communication component, the processing of that person without overreacting or creating a panic?
Right. Well, I guess quick question on that one, John.
Yeah.
Is that if a planner has an attendee that basically they have COVID symptoms, is that the hotel's responsibility at that point, or is it the planner's responsibility to have them tested?
Yeah, that gets into a very tricky legal liability area, and that's one of our other kind of. But when we work with clients, that's a role that we assume we handle that piece, because it puts people in a very weird spot, because the hotel's responsibility, their duty of care is ensuring that they're providing you the safe environment, that they are providing you an environment that is consistent with the guidance of the location. Right. And remember, guidance is based on your local state or county, not necessarily the CDC. A lot of times states and counties follow CDC, but it really falls down to the local level for guidance. So what we have in Arizona may not apply to California, et cetera. Right. Okay. The question then becomes, when you falling into the planner, so it's interesting because you can't force someone to go get tested. You can't force an attendee. You can tell an attendee to leave. You can't force them to go to the hospital. You can't force them to get tested, et cetera. Right. So that's what creates that kind of relationship complication where you really want to focus on. And that's where like a group like ours comes in, and we kind of manage and mitigate that piece of let's get someone kind of separated. Let's isolate them. Let's ensure that we do the right processing.
Right.
It's really not something that most planners are typically equipped to handle. In addition to their, other free time, I say jokingly, as I know they're always swamped to begin
Right.
with,
Right.
So,
No,
and it,
I think that brings up another point though. Is like, I mean, imagine being that person that's in the general section or in a large room and suddenly has a coughing attack or a
yes,
sneezing attack, and maybe they just went down the wrong windpipe or something.
yes.
But everybody will absolutely lose their minds, and they'll be
Well,
like,
and
"Take care of this guy, get him out of
yes,
here," type
yes,
of thing. I
exactly.
can't imagine that coming up and what would have to happen and who would be responsible to kind of take care of that type of situation.
Yeah, kind of shepherd that
Yeah.
process. And that's one thing that you've seen, Mark, that we really work close with people on is that crisis communications.
Right.
And that's one of the things we identified. So I come up and I'm identifying with the symptoms and that's pretty easy to work with. We can get you in a lane, process
Mhm.
you. But if all of a sudden you walk up and say, that guy over there, I'm positive has COVID, and people will react like that. There's a lot of fear surrounding this. That's normal human nature.
Right.
That guy right there, 100% has COVID. I want him out of here.
Right.
Who on your team handles that, and
Right.
how do you handle that?
Right. Yeah. Do you have the AV tech in the back of the room? The person running around with a microphone, just go take care of, Uncle Harry, who's, having a coughing attack type of thing. So that's gotta be,
God forbid you have allergies during an event.
Right. Exactly.
So
Yeah.
it's going to take a lot of processing. And that's where, when we deal with things, you've seen us and you've worked with us where we go to those just red team, just nth degree of what if, to the point you could, drive yourself crazy with it.
Right.
Those are the little things that are really going to impact an event. And it's something where a lot of the work we do is front loading.
Right.
Front end communication of, hey,
Right.
we have plans in place. We have staff on site specifically to deal with those types of things, because that helps calm people. It makes them feel more comfortable, and they're not as concerned with the different scenarios.
Right. So are you and your company, are you guys dealing with putting together testing type of kits to have available, or temperature checks or anything like that? Are you getting into that or looking at that right now?
So we are we're a fully customizable group. So we really work a lot with what is the attendee, or what is the person hosting the event, what is their interest on what they like.
Right.
Majority of the recommendation you're going to see most likely for meetings and events would be temperature checks, confirming people that don't have temperatures. The actual swabbing people, things like that, because of the timeliness of it, that gets into a real weird medical component where you're talking about lab processing and things like that.
Right.
If you have that much concern, let's talk and see if we can't, kind of walk you through that process a little bit.
Right.
There's a lot of steps you can put in place and then one of the things we talk about with the need for risk management is kind of that coordination. So who on the team is going to ensure that the hotel's living up to their end of the deal of what they said they do? Who's going to be the quote unquote bad guy that's ensuring your attendees are living up to, what they're supposed to be doing, whatever the guidance is. So if we say you have 6 foot guidance, you don't have, you don't want to have prolonged physical contact, et cetera, most likely we end up being the bad guys when we come into events, and we're used to it. We get, you just kind of get over it after a while.
Right.
But, we want to balance that, promoting those, putting in those mitigation steps to help that, while kind of focusing on, all right, hey, hotel, hey, attendees, let's make sure we're keeping it cool, keeping it tight, making sure we're following the guidelines that we set out and that we agreed upon on the front end with the conference host and the hotel, et cetera. And just trying to promote that without totally, doing the Johnny Fun Stopper, over regulation of the event. Because as we try to always maintain, we want a safe environment, but it still should be welcoming and fun and not, if everybody's got to stay in a lane and I'm swabbing you and checking you and, just going crazy with it and everybody's got to stay in a box, it kind of defeats the point of having that physical contact and social interaction. Right.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I was talking earlier about the Connect conference out in New Orleans in August and how they're doing temperature checks before people get into the expo hall. So even just something like that. And again, like you said, it's not about swabbing everybody and sending stuff to labs, but at least having some of those initial checks in place to make people feel more comfortable about going into an exhibit hall or a general session, whatever it may be. I think those are great steps to take. So
yeah, and communicating with your attendees that are going to come out that that, hey, if you're not feeling well, don't come. Like when we started this whole
Right.
process, if you're
Right.
not feeling well, don't come to it.
Right.
And maybe even building in some contingencies of some refund processes that if you're sick, if you're having an illness, don't come to the event. We ask that because, like you joked of Uncle Harry in the
Mhm.
general session.
Mhm.
Nobody's going to want to be the first person that coughs in a general
Right.
session when we all open back up.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
um,
Exactly.
it's also to the other side of this is the super strict side, but also it's the not being too loose about it. When people
Mhm.
get comfortable, depending on the attention cycle and what the new norm looks like, making sure that you are still paying attention to things, that we don't run a second spike, that you don't have the event that everyone gets infected at, etc. Really balancing that good sound guidance and practice while being realistic about the expectations.
Right.
um, One of the things we talked about and a lot for your planners is expect that a lot of your attendees may have unrealistic expectations.
Mhm.
We dealt with a couple folks that were wanting us to, I want you to guarantee that anyone with COVID systems, you'll force them to go to the hospital. And I'm like, I can't do that. That's
Right.
kidnapping. So
Right. Right.
it's frowned upon,
Right. Right.
And then, or I want you to guarantee that there's no way I get infected or there's no, and honestly,
Yeah.
with community spread, with the way that COVID has spread, it's it's
Mhm.
it's everywhere and anywhere. And the country's doing a great job in working through the guidance, following the
Mhm.
guidance, being adherent to it.
Mhm.
You're going to have to manage expectations with your attendees and I would just say from the hotel side or the planner side, don't overpromise. With
Right.
everybody wanting to get back into business, because I think I know you're big on reputation, as are we. If
Mhm.
you overpromise and you can't live up to those promises, your attendees are going to be disappointed and you're going to get called to task on it.
Right.
If you're trying to put in mitigation steps that are really unrealistic to sustain, you need to be
Mhm.
mindful of that on the front end.
Right.
And that's something that we're also happy to help, whether it's hotels or planners, of, hey, you come to us and say, here's what we're thinking about putting into place.
Mhm.
Let's talk about maybe some alternatives that don't back you into a corner
Right.
that if you can't live up to it, you're going to get stuck with.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, John, hey, I tell you what, I appreciate you being on. If you don't mind, I'd love to take some questions from some of our audience members here, some of our planners or even hoteliers on kind of your services and kind of
Absolutely.
your insight on stuff. So, if anybody has any questions here for John Whitney, please type them in the comments section. We'll get them up on the screen here and we can answer them immediately for you. So, all right, have you seen any new legislation come out of related to our industry and COVID moving forward?
Not specifically as far as,
Mhm.
a lot of it has been really designed towards the social distancing, the cleaning, disinfecting, common best practices types of issues. If I was just going to speculate, I feel like what you're most likely going to see, and don't hold me to this, it's just my personal
Right,
opinion.
of course.
I think what you're going to see is a reversing out of the steps that we used getting into this. So
Okay.
I think that reverse out's going to look like, okay, starting very soon are, kind of the 10 person limit,
Mm-hmm.
and then maintaining the social distancing, and then the 50-person limit, and
Right.
then et cetera, kind of graduating up. Kind
Right.
of, if you looked at the way we got to the point we're at now, just
Mm-hmm.
picture in your head reversing back out of that the other way, because
Right.
they're gonna want to have a time where they can kind of monitor the potential spread in uptake, increase, etc. I
Right.
think one of the things that's going to stay around for a long time, because
Mm-hmm.
it's easy to put out in society. Unfortunately, it's not easy from a meetings and event standpoint, is the
Mm-hmm.
6 foot distancing.
Yeah.
That's probably going to be for quite some time. I would get that in the heads right now.
Right.
Now, masks, things like that,
Mhm.
and then the good hygiene. It's always the joke of, like, were you not washing your hands before this?
Right.
Like,
Right.
so
Exactly.
just some sound best practices
Okay.
tightened down. But the distancing and the large gathering will still be a big thing. I loved your comment with the other gentleman about the utilizing outside space and
Yeah.
spreading that out,
Yeah.
etc. I think the difficulty will be the focus on, okay, we're going to implement 6 foot guidelines, social distancing, physical distancing. the people are going to want to congregate potentially, and you're just
Right.
going to have to again
Right.
have those bad guys. They're like, hey,
Right.
folks, come on, you know. So
Well, that's a tough
without
thing,
painting
right?
boxes everywhere. So
Right, when you've got like 4 or 5 people that get together, hey, it's great seeing you again.
yeah,
And then you got to go up to them and say, hey, 6 feet apart, you know,
yeah,
and hey, John and Bill haven't seen each other in a while, and they want to, you know, shake hands or give each other a hug or something.
yeah.
And trying to
And
keep that distance while keeping the hospitality part of our industry, I think is going to be hard for a lot of people, especially a lot of
it,
people that go to conferences.
yeah, it
Yeah.
absolutely is. And most people are going to default back to kind of current practices and whatnot. And that's, I think, something where, you know, for us, we would have that conversation on the front end with
Right.
the hotel as well as the conference host of how much do you want to push that?
Right.
There's a lot of mitigation things
Right.
you can put into place of let's separate the tables apart. You know,
Mhm.
even if we don't go, you know, plated food, we're going to have a buffet, but the buffet is going to have servers, so it's
Mhm.
not everybody touching, etc.
Mhm.
You're going to have to kind of find the balance that you're comfortable with, that you're also not not totally neglecting any major legislation.
Right.
Remember, a lot of the times the things that come out are guidance.
Right.
Now, you got to be careful in not following guidance, but that's different sometimes than legislation, executive orders, things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. It's
And
not
that's
like they
something
can,
where,
you're right. They can't
yeah,
arrest you and they can't, you know, uh,
yeah,
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 stuff like that. So, yeah.
yeah. So, and that's something where we can help walk folks through as well to kind of
Right.
help that out. So.
So, John, when is the first group you're working on coming out of this, or have you worked on one already where your staff has been on site?
We have one. I was trying to think. We had one set for July, but they ended up having to move because
Okay.
of they had some cancellation
Right.
timelines.
Right.
I think our next one we're actually looking at. I'm trying to think. We have a group in August.
In
Is going to be
August.
our
Okay.
next group. Yep, in Dallas, Texas. So
Okay.
yeah,
And what kind of preparations have you done for that? Or
similar,
planning?
same things. Yeah, the same things that we're talking about
Okay.
now of modifying that contingency plan up, still
Yeah.
putting in a comprehensive emergency operations plan to ensure that we're all hazards, that we're ready for anything, and
Right.
then starting those conversations with them about what level of comfort do we want to, how far do we want to push some of these things, what's the
Right.
guidance we want to look at and implement, but having a good solid plan to
Right.
to implement,
Okay.
and really marketing our involvement of, hey, we have people there on site to help with this process to
Right.
ensure that your issues and needs are taken care of, to put the attendees at minds at ease.
Right.
You can do whatever you want with venues, hotels, etc., as you know better than anyone.
Yeah.
If the attendees don't show up, they don't show
Yeah.
up. So and that's really going
Yeah.
to be the balance of being able to communicate to them, and put their minds at ease and help them be comfortable taking that, get out of the box, go ahead and get a haircut, shave your face, put on
Right.
some clean clothes, come out of
Right.
the house, and let's get back to meeting.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. Let's see if we have any other questions that are coming up here for you, John, before we let you go. Anything else for our friend John Whitney with Emergency Concierge International? Anything? A second or two. All right. Well, obviously, John, really appreciate your insight on this. I think, like you said, having a company like yourselves to not only help planners, but attendees feel more comfortable with these events moving forward, especially the next 6 to 12 months, I think is vital. Thank you for the information that you put together. Obviously, as soon as you get your revised stuff, please send it to me so I can get it out to our team. But really appreciate your being here, and thanks for not only being a great partner but a great friend. So stay
Hey,
safe out there.
thanks, Mark. I really appreciate it, and thank you for the opportunity.
All right. Hey, thanks,
All
John.
right.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
All right. Well, hey, that was great information. Wow. Sorry about the little technical difficulty there, but John obviously is fantastic. And his involvement in what they do, not only obviously on the COVID side, but any type of emergency response is vital. And his company does a great job, and we highly recommend them. So, yeah, visit emergencyconcierge.net for more information there. So, all right. Well, I wanted to close and see if we have any other questions that I can answer for anybody personally that are on the call. Will there be room for negotiation on minimum spend, as we would need bigger space to practice social distancing? Yeah. You know what? That's a great question. Will there be room for negotiation? Absolutely, there will. I think when we talked to Troy earlier with Park Hyatt Aviara, I think you're seeing hotels come up with new room sets, new capacity charts. So I think that there will definitely be some room there. And like I was saying earlier on the call, don't negotiate these contracts now like it's 2019. We have a whole new set of rules. We have a whole new set of I think issues and capacities and food and beverage type of situations, whether it's individual break sessions, individual plated meals, things like that. There's going to be a lot more flexibility. So yes, there should definitely be negotiation and flexibility there. And if you're not getting that, I would look elsewhere, honestly. So, but that's a great question. Any other questions out there that I can answer for you guys that are coming up? Anything else? Yes, obviously. Send me an email, mdahlman@hpglobal.com. You want me to look at a hotel contract for you, even if I wasn't involved in it? I'd be happy to do that. You want to talk to me about future RFPs? You want to talk to me about upcoming groups and how to handle those? Please let me know. My services are free. I'm here to help. So fast, free, and honest. I'm here for you. So any other questions at all that we have from anybody? Anybody? Okay. Well, thank you, Holly. I appreciate that. Holly's a great friend and new client of mine that actually watched our first Facebook Live call. We got her out of $1 million cancellation charge for a June program, and looking forward to working with Holly much more in future programs. So thank you, Holly. I appreciate that. Any other questions or all? Erica, of course. Thank you also. Erica was another brand new client that I was able to help out. And thanks to our friends actually at the Arizona Biltmore that were able to work on some negotiations on that process. So appreciate them for their hotel relationship and for their client relationship also. So thank you, Erica. Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Always here to help. I'm going to be here every Friday. I feel it's important for me to give you guys updates on what's going on, be honest with you, and really tell you about any new programs, new situations. As we've talked about before, we're basically going to build this car as we drive it. So everybody's going to come up with new ideas, new suggestions. New hotels are going to come up with different information on how they handle banquets, how they handle breaks, how they handle the check-in process, how they handle their sanitation guidelines. So I think you're going to see a lot of that coming out every week. So I'll give you as much information as I can. I appreciate everybody being on the call. I want to say happy Mother's Day weekend to all those mothers out there. Again, some other services. If you need the state and city gathering ban list, please let me know. Shoot me an email. That is a very, very important document, and we're updating that on a daily basis. So definitely have that because, again, as these hotels start to open up and even these cities and states, the gathering bans are going to be huge knowing what's going in. So, oh, thank you, Eric. I appreciate that. I will be having a cocktail after this session, so appreciate that. But hey, everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and again, shoot me an email if there's anything I can help you out with. But really appreciate everybody being on the call, and we'll see you next Friday.